Okay, welcome back to Properties of Radical Functions, and this is our last example, part 3, and I've very carefully drawn a parabola here, as you can see. It's taken me a few tries, but I did that before I started the recording, so it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I think we're in business. What we're going to do, our goal is we will sketch y equals the square root of f of x. And I'm not even going to list a bunch of points in a table of values here, because I think we've done enough now that we could probably figure it out directly and sketch it right over top of this grid. So I'm going to start off by saying that, see all these points between -2 and +2, all these points down here? Well, they all have y values that are negative, and we can't square root them, so guess what? We're going to throw all these guys away. All these guys cease to exist, okay? So we're really only working with this little zone over here and this little zone over here, and seems to me they're symmetrical. So whatever I produce over here, it should look exactly the same over here. Now what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and change colors. Let's see here. I'm going to try to use red and see what happens. Just because I think it's more clear when I draw it. So I'm going to start by looking at some invariant points. I'm going to use red right over top this. This is a point with a y value of 0, so it's not going to move. And neither is this guy over here with a y value of 1. Okay? Same thing over here. This guy is not going to move, and this guy here is not going to move. Okay, they have y values of 0 and 1, so they're going to stay put. Now we're going to look at this little zone here, and all these points have y values that are between 0 and 1. When you square root numbers that are between 0 and 1, the numbers get bigger. So all these points here, they are now going to be higher than their originals. So they're going to go do something like this. Okay, they're going to be a little bit higher. Same thing over here. Okay, so there we go. We got that part of it. Now the only part is, what do I do with this thing coming up here? And there are technically 3 ways that this could go. So I'm going to change it back to black here, if I can. There we go. I think I'm back to black. There's 3 possibilities here for this part here. Okay, possibility number 1, we're talking about if you have a situation like this, and the old graph looks, say, something like this. Maybe it's just a line. Okay. These y values, and by the way, this is 1 here. So we're talking about y values that are greater than 1, and they're on a straight line. If you square root these numbers, your new graph will look something like this. It has kind of a downward bend to it. Okay? So that's what could happen, but we don't have a line here. At least I think it's a kind of a parabola going up. So let me just show you the other 2 possibilities. See if we can squeeze it all in here. If your original, and again we're starting at 1 here, if your original goes up, and it's got a bit of a slight bend to it. So it's kind of a slow-growing parabola. Well, when you square root these y values, sometimes what you get is a straight line. It's kind of like it's taken this guy here and it's kind of straightened it out, because we've got the top original function going up with a bit of a curve, and it kind of pulls the bottom one along with it. It's kind of a way to think about it. And then the other thing that can happen is, suppose it's a parabola, but it grows much steeper. Okay, so in other words, the original might grow quite quickly. And what can happen then is that the original also gets bent along with it. It won't grow as fast as the original, but you see how it now has an upward bend to it. So it can either have a downward bend, it can turn into a straight line, or it can have an upward bend, and it all depends on the original. Is the original just a straight line? Does it have slight curvature to it, or does it have very steep curvature? And so we kind of make a judgment call. Let me go back to red now. I think I'm in red again. Yes, I am. This looks pretty steep to me. So I'm going to guess that it's not growing as fast, but it has a bit of an upward curve to it as well, because the original is a very steep curve. And so the same thing, I think, is happening over here. So that is my image of this radical graph. And that's where I'm going to stop looking at radicals and look at something else.